what's up. So somebody had to call me right when I'm doing this. Of course. Okay, so let's get into all of this. So in the sync, we went over styling tables. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to do this. We make a table, style it up a little bit, and mess around with it. And what else we're going to do? We have to also go over and make sure that we're going to practice this concept of using multiple classes as well. And then we're going to take a look at pseudo classes and the display property. So let's get into it then. Actually, first, we're going to make a folder. And just name it. You can name it whatever you want, and then drag it and drop it onto your VS Code, and we will have that folder available there. So we can start populating the folder. So what we're going to do is, like we always do, we do this the same way every time. We make the folder, and then we make an image folder just in case we use any images. And then we make a CSS folder just in case, well, not just in case, we're going to be using CSS. So we'll make the CSS folder. So we'll put the CSS in there, and then we're going to make the index.html. So folder, an image folder, and then we'll make a CSS folder, and then we'll make an index.html. And just make sure that this index.html is outside, like not in, make sure it's not in either one of these folders. So once we have that index.html there, we can start writing some HTML. So we got the declaration, opening and closing HTML tags. We're going to put the head and the body as usual, like that. And we'll also do the usual stuff in the head. We'll add a title. What else? What else? Tables display property. Something like that, I guess. So yeah, then we're gonna put the meta, the character set. Then we're gonna put meta name, the description. the display. Yeah, whatever, we'll just leave it like that. Don't forget to close that. What else do we need in here? We need the link to the CSS file. So we haven't made this file yet, but we will. And it's relative. And type text CSS. We're also going to put the language attribute in there, and that should be good for now. That will get us started. So in the CSS folder, we're just going to add that file that we told it to put there. So style.css. So this will point to this, and we're good to go. So let's build up a interface, and we will, let's see here, table, we're going to have a couple tables, and some tables, and what else can we build? Some navigation, and we'll just play around with the tables and stuff. So we'll just build just the same sort of interface we've been building. So we'll build a header. Actually, wait, no, this should be the wrapper or container, whatever. We're gonna use this wrapper here and build a net. So div class header inside of the wrapper, and then a div with a class of nav, and then a div with a class of name, and then a div with a class of footer. So in the header, we can just put some h1. Tables with CSS. In the nav, we're just going to make dummy nav, like it's not going to go anywhere. So we'll make a list with some list items. Inside of list items, we need an A tag. So again, we make a list. This is a item in the list, and then the A tag is the anchor tag that makes a link. A tags make a link. To tell the link where we want it to go, we need an attribute. And that attribute is href. And the href tells it where we want it to go. This hashtag just makes it a dummy link. It doesn't go anywhere. So we can use it as just a placeholder. So we'll change this to about, and we'll just copy and paste more in there. And put this one as contact. So there's our nav, and in the main is where we're going to put the main content, which is going to be the tables that we're going to style. And then the footer, we're just going to do the usual, some H4 and say, and copy semicolon 2021 somewebsite.com. Okay, so here we're going to put our, well, we can take a look at this quick first before we move on. So right click on the header, copy path, and we can paste that right in there. And there's our there's our site with nothing much on it. So the main, we'll just build up some a little bit of content, some tables. So H1, and we'll just put just some tables. And then we'll write a table tag. Let me just check to see if there's any. When I drag a folder, nothing happens. You have to drag it and drop it onto your VS Code. So just drag the folder onto like this area of VS Code and it should just reload it. And when it reloads it, you'll notice that the folder that you made will be in here. So you're going a little bit, okay, I'm going too fast, I'll slow down. So, well, first, do you have all of this stuff in the wrapper? So far we just have this, the header, the navigation bar, the main content, and the footer. But I will slow down. Not yet? Okay. I'll give it a minute so everybody can catch up. So in the table, we're gonna put some table rows. So, oops. We don't have to put a lot of these. We'll just put a couple table rows with some table headings and some table datas. So we'll put some table headings and another table row with some table datas. can just copy and paste this and match. There's 3 of these there. We'll just put 3 of those here. And we can leave that as that. Let me that's why I don't like using this the way that I used the OBS this time, because before it kept not streaming properly. But I don't like the way that it has the built-in chat, because I can't have it on the side without like the OBS up. It's so annoying. So what we can do is copy this and just paste another one in there, just so that we have 2 tables. And we could even like get rid of one of the table headings and one of the table datas on the second one, just so that when we look at it, we know that there's 2 different tables. Oh, wait, did I do that right? Yeah. So one has an extra column, one has a less column. And we're just going to use this so that we can see the difference of what I'm about to show you. So, in here we talked about why, as much as we can do this, using style as an attribute, which is like inline styling. As much as we can do it, we don't do it. And the reason why is because if I come in here and I start styling my table, right, and make the width 100%. Say style equals border 2 pixels, solid black. Then I would have to also do, see there's the outer border. And then if I wanted the border to be in here too, I would have to come onto these and say border, right, in the actual cells, right, or here, right. I would have to, on every different element, I would have to style whatever I wanted, and it would take forever to do this, right? Whoops, that keeps happening. Let me get rid of all of that. So style border 2 pixels solid. And there's one of the cells with the border. I would have to add this border in each of these cells to get the board, to get this to work and look how I wanted it to look. It takes way too long to do that, right? Which is why we don't do this. I mean, you can do it, but we don't do it, right? So we could, if we did it exactly how it is in the lecture, then we would come up with what we were looking at in the sync. in the sync class. But we don't want to do it that way. We would want to use the external CSS method to get everything looking how we want. Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. I just have to mute my mic for a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so where are we at? We have to so we got to get rid of this. And we're good to go there. So like I was saying, that's why we don't use the inline CSS. We are going to do all of that up in here. So before we get to the table, we need to start doing the basic interface here. So we're going to start with the HTML, and we're going to say font, family, sans serif, and we're going to say body, margin 0. Then we're going to say to the wrapper, because remember, this wrapper here is going to control how all of this stuff in there is working. Well, not how it's all working, but we can control the position of it using CSS just by it all being inside of the wrapper. So like we did before, we could do something like this with 70%, right? And if we did that, then we would see the width of, well, here, let me put a background color on here, just so that you can see it. That might be too light, so let me. Do that. See, 70%. Before we did this, it was 100%, right? So we can make the wrapper be something like this, and margin auto, and have it centered like this in the middle. Okay. So what we could do, instead of having the background color, we could have a border to pixel solid black. They'll give us a little border for the wrapper, and we could leave that like that. Let me make sure. Right now I have a problem and I can't really explain it through text, so I'm stuck now, getting behind. I understand what you're doing, but trying to keep different places isn't easy. Okay, so I gotta slow down more. What's the problem that you're having that you can't explain it? Well, are you able to tell me where the problem is in the HTML? It's not about the speed, it's more about the fact I can't communicate it at all. And I fixed, oh, okay, you fixed the problem. Yeah, I know. And it's even worse now that I can't type in here because there's no box for me to type in. So I might actually look into setting up that Discord server. Somebody was asking me about that. And with the Discord server, we'd be able to have voice as well. So I might look into that. But if you fix the problem, then I will continue on and I will try to go slower. So we did the wrapper, we have to now do the header. And remember, we're going to call the header via the class, right? We're going to use this to target the CSS, like to target it in this using CSS. So just like we did with the wrapper, right? We used .wrapper to target this here, which affects whatever's in here, whatever's inside of the wrapper. So we're going to say .header, and then we're going to tell it what we want to do. .header, and inside of here, we're going to tell the header how we want it to behave. So we can look at the page and ask ourselves, how do we want the header to look in here? So like, how high do we want the header to be? What do we want the height of it to be? Height. We could have like a thin type of header, or we could have a taller header, right? We'll put a background color just so we can see it. Right, we could do something like this where it's not as tall, or we can make it taller if we wanted to, right? Adding more height, I'm just gonna make it taller. Okay. Now you might notice that at the top of the header there's some space up here, this white space. That is coming off of here, off of the text. There is, see there's a margin on the top and the bottom of that H1 text there. So once we get rid of that, it will push it up so that everything will be nice and flush. Okay. So to do that, to target this H1, all we're going to do is target the H1 inside of the header. Okay, because remember, this H1 is inside of the header. Okay, so we have to say dot header H1. Then we can tell the H1 in the header to not have any margin. We could specifically say margin top because it is technically the margin on the top of it that we want to get rid of. Margin top 0 pixels. And that would fix the problem. See? But there would still be margin on the bottom of this, but it's not really going to matter. See, there's still margin on the bottom. We could get rid of that just by saying margin 0 pixels, and that would do the same. See, now there's just no margin at all. So we could do that, and that would work. Let me check the chat. What you put in the style.css? Yeah. Oh. Okay, so if your style.css isn't working, you have to check a couple things. A, did you in here, you have to make sure that this has no typos in it. So where it says link href equals css/style.css, you have to make sure that this is spelled exactly like how this is spelled, and that it's in the right location, that it's inside of this CSS folder. So css/style.css. You have to make sure that this folder is inside of the folder that we're working on, and everything is in the right place. So can you double check all of that and make sure? Oh, I didn't put the link just... okay, yeah. So once you put the link in there, then it'll work. And I will copy that and paste it into the... Oh wait, I can't even paste it into the chat because this chat doesn't allow me to type anything. Oh wait, maybe... Yes, you know, see, there's nothing there. But okay, just make sure that you put this in there. Link href equals css/style.css. And then these two attributes, rel equals style sheet, and type equals text/CSS. So now have to. We got rid of the margin on the H1. Now we can put some padding on it to push it down. So just some padding from the top. We want to push this downward. That's too much. So let's try 200. And we're going to center it. We're going to center it by putting text align center. And that will put it in the middle. So text align center. And we can also make the text bigger. So like 80 pixels. Yeah. Okay, so we got the header done. And now, after the header, we have to do the navigation. Check the chat. Okay, so let's get the navigation stuff done. And the navigation, we're going to get an example of something that we have to talk about, which is the display property. But first, we're going to work our way down. We're going to work our way into the nav. So we're going to start by calling this, and then we're going to target the OL inside of the class of nav, right? Then we're going to target the list items that are inside of the OL that is inside of the class of nav. And then we're going to target the A tags that are inside of the list items that are inside of the OL that is inside of the class of nav. Similar to how what we're gonna do is just like what we did with the H1 in the header. Right? What did we do? We targeted something that was inside of something else. We're gonna do the same thing with the navigation items. We're gonna start from the top and work our way down. So .nav, and we're gonna tell it, for example, height 80 pixels. We can tell it to have a border at the bottom. Let me just double check. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. What we can do though, what I'll do instead is I'll put a background color just so that you can see the area that we're working in. So there's the area we're working in, the navigation bar. And again, there is margin on the top and on the bottom. But what it's coming from in the nav is this OL, and we're going to zero out the margin in that as well. Just like how we zero out the margin on here. We're just going to tell the OL to have margin 0 when we get to it, which is going to be the next thing that we're going to do. So we're going to say, remember, the OL is inside of the navigation. So we're going to say .nav OL. See how we're just working our way into the things inside of the nav. So all we're going to say on this is margin 0. That's it. That's all we need to do on the OL. And there we go. Margin 0. So now we're going to keep working our way in. What's the next thing inside of the navigation? Right? We nav, then we went inside to the OL. The next thing is the list items. We're going to target all of them, and we're going to style all of them one time. And then we're going to, the next step will be working our way in and targeting all of the A tags inside and styling all of those one time. So we say .nav list items, right? Now what do we want to do with the list items? Well, first off, we don't want them to display like this, because this is how list items display. We want to change their behavior. Like we talked about in our lecture, we do that by using the display property to change the way that a thing behaves. Okay? So it's like, telling one object to pretend that it's another object, basically. So you say, instead of display list items or display list, you say display inline block. So pretend that your inline block element, and it will do what it's told to do, inline block elements. See, the default of list items is this, list item. That's a default, because that's what list items do. But instead we tell it inline block. Now, this gets it to look how they should look as a navigation, but we need to give these some space, some room. So we're going to do that with margin. But first, there's a couple things we need to take into account. We want the size of these to be bigger. So we want like the font size to be bigger. And then we want to space them out properly. So to make the font size bigger, let me just double check the chat. Okay. To make the font size bigger, we're going to do that on the actual A tag itself. So .navoli. So remember, we've been working our way down. Now we're targeting the A tag that is inside of the LI, that is inside of the OL, that is inside of the nav. And we can tell the font size to be whatever size we want. And there it's a little bit bigger. I'm also going to say, while we're here, text decoration none. And this is going to just get rid of that underline that is on there. So text decoration none. Now for these list items, and I'll show you, because see, each one of these list items is what we want to target. And we're just going to be, well, not each one of them individually, but all of them at the same time. And we're just going to kind of add some space around each one of them so that they space themselves out. And we're going to do that with margin. So we're going to say from the top, in other words, pushing it down, because this margin here is going to go clockwise. So top, right, bottom, left. So from when we put the top, margin top, it puts margin on the top of the item. And because the margin is on the top of the item, it pushes it down. Right? So we're going to say 15 pixels from the top to push it down. And then 20 pixels from the right, 0 from the bottom, and 0 from the left, which will spread things out. So 15 from the top, 20, was it 20 that I put there? From the right. So 20 from the right. We could probably use a little bit more from the top to push it down a little bit more. Yeah. We can also change the color of the text, like this. Just say color and put whatever color you want in there. And then we can jump into the pseudo class aspect that we talked about down here. So a pseudo class, it's how you add CSS to any object that happens to be in a different state or any particular state. So what's a state? It's like if you're moused over an object, or if you have clicked on an object, or if you have the clicker like actually clicked on an object. Those are different states. So how do we do that? We can target whatever thing we wanted to alter, and then we use a colon, and then tell it which state. So here's an example. Example hover. So this is like some element when it's being hovered over, do whatever I put in here. Okay. Now in this working example, we're going to call this the same thing we were just on. It's the A tags that we want to change when they're being hovered over, right? So .navOLLIA, right? Sorry, my bad, I forgot to put the pseudo class there. Hover, when it's being hovered over, right? So the saying, the A tags, when you're being hovered over, do whatever, okay? Now, also keep in mind that all of this is just still going down into the object. So like, what this is saying is the A tags that are inside of the list items that are inside of the OLs, or the OL that happens to be inside of the object with the class of nav on it, when this A tag that's in all of that stuff is being hovered over, do whatever you're told to do in here. Right? Just like how this is saying when it's just in its natural state to do what it's being told. This is the same thing just when it's being hovered over. So we can just change the color, for example. And we can make it whatever color we want. And now when we hover over it, it will change its color. You could do other things in there too. Right? You could put like the text decoration. Underline. And it will put that there too. Right? I mean, you could, what I'm trying to show is you could do anything in here and it would work. Now, that doesn't mean you should, but you could, right? Like, don't start doing stuff like this. sometimes you see people do this and it's horrible, right? And you can see why it's horrible, because it starts doing all this moving around stuff. It's annoying. So don't start doing crazy stuff like that. You want it to be subtle, right? Simple and easy. Okay? So that's a pseudo class. And again, a pseudo class can be applied to literally anything, right? Like you could do a pseudo class just to show you, like HTML cover, right? You could do this, and if you, as soon as you mouse over the whole HTML tag, it's going to do what you told it to do, right? It'll work anywhere. But just because it works anywhere and you can do anything with it doesn't mean you should. So just keep that in mind. So there's your pseudo class. And that's our nav. So now we can get to the tables. Did I save it? No, I didn't. There. Let me check the chat. A little slower. Okay, I'll go slow. My eyes are trying to catch up. My mind is going blank. I'm hearing you speak, but I can't concentrate on the words. Okay, if you think you're on track, that's good. I don't want this to be too slow, because we have a bit more to do and we gotta be on time. But if I'm going too fast and you fall too far behind, just keep in mind that this is going to be there. So once the recording is like just on YouTube, you can pause it at any time and just go at your own pace. So we got to get now to these tables, but before we do, there is the main, the dot main that we want to do something to. So dot main. We want to put some padding on there. Just so that we give some space between everything inside of the container and the content, like that, right? Now, I'm noticing that there's an issue here somewhere. Oh, shoot, that's why. This is not right. This isn't right. So we got to do a thing here, because see, look, this is the main. You can see when I click this div, we have the opening main content and the closing main content. All of the main content is supposed to be in between these opening and closing divs. But I accidentally went and put a table outside of that div, along with the footer. And see, there's a closing div here that should not be there. It's just like a rogue closing div that doesn't have a corresponding one. So somewhere along the line, I screwed that up and I made some error. So this is how we're going to fix it now. We are going to select this table all the way down to the footer, just like that, and we're going to cut it Or no, wait a minute. That was the. We're gonna have to put a closing div in there for the wrapper. I got rid of that by accident. That was the rogue the rogue closing div. So we're gonna paste all that inside of the main. So you can see that both the tables and the footer. What am I doing? The footer should not be in the main. My brain is not working properly today. So what do we want in the main? We want the H1, the first table, the second table, and then the closing div for the main. And then after the main, the footer will be there. And then the div closing the wrapper. So just to give you another look at this, how we want this to look is like this. We want to have the wrapper open up here. And then inside of the wrapper, we want to have the header, the navigation bar, the main content here. All of that's the main content. And inside of the main content, we're going to have the first table, the second table, and that's it. We'll end this H1. And then the footer right there. And after the footer, you're going to have a closing div to close the wrapper. After that, you're going to have your closing body tag and the closing HTML tag. Just so you can go over that and make sure that you have that to match mine after fixing it. Sorry about that. We caught up now. Okay, good. But I like working the same time as you. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. But I mean, it is what it is. If you fall too, and you didn't fall too far behind anyway, so you're good. You got nothing to worry about. I know this stuff can seem confusing, and it is confusing at first, so I get it, right? But don't worry. Don't. Again, a lot of the time when people start learning HTML and CSS and any type of any subject similar to this, they overcomplicate it in their head, right? And that's the number one thing. I know this looks intimidating, but it's not. Once you start to understand it, it's not intimidating at all. It just looks intimidating, but it's really, really easy. And you're not falling far behind, so you're good. You're good. Um, Another thing too is muscle memory. As you start writing these things, you're gonna, if you practice enough, which is another reason why I like to do these live streams and do it like twice a week, because you're gonna practice, and as you practice, you're gonna build the muscle memory of like typing and like you know what I mean. You're just gonna get used to typing the things that we're typing. And that's another thing that you want to develop, is that muscle memory. So that our index is fixed. If we look at it now, this will be over a little bit more, and this will actually be inside of there, see? I mean, we could leave this outside if we want. It doesn't really matter, but I just want it to be, you know, all lined up in this case. So the main, we put our padding. That's all good. Now we got to start working with our tables. We're not going to bother styling the H1. We're just going to do the tables. So, like we talked about in our class on Tuesday, yesterday, there's a few different ways we can go about targeting these tables. Because remember, what are we going to target? So far, we can just target this because that's all we have there. If we gave the table a class, or even an ID, which again, I remember I said I never use IDs for CSS, but technically, if you did give it an ID, you could use that to target it in the CSS. But if we gave it a class, we could target the class. Let's do that real quick, and just to give you an example of that. So .tbl, I gave it the class table class tbl, right? So I say .tbl, let's say border 2 pixels solid. Oh no, instead of solid, let's just say dash for the heck of it, black. And we'll do something real simple. Table border 2 pixels dash black, and then we'll say dot table th, and when I put this here, this just means and tbl table datas, because I want to do something to both of these at the same time. That should target it the way I want to. Let me just double check. Border 2 pixels dashed black. Whoops. I had a colon on there. This should be a semicolon. So let's take a look, and there we go. Actually, just so that we can differentiate these, I'll change I'm going to change the borders. Because remember, this border, here, let me just triple explain this so that you understand exactly what's going on. Remember, in the table, we used table headings and then table datas. We could have made these just table datas if we wanted to. Like, these could be TDs, right? It doesn't really matter. I just want to train you in a way that you know that you can use table headings, and if you don't, then it's fine. You can use table datas up here. Like, if this, whoops, you don't have to do what I'm doing now, just follow along. But if these were table datas up here, see, table datas, if they were table datas, they would still work. They would just show what's in there, right? But table headings, all they do is make the contents in there bold, right? See how heading is bold and then data is not? That's all it does. But, so when we add the border, we want to do it to both of these. Because if we just did it to one, then we would just get a border on the table heading and not on the table data, see? How these have the border, these don't. So all we're doing is just doing both of them at the same time by saying, look, table, the class, the table headings that are inside of the class of .tbl and the table data is inside of the thing with the class tbl, do this at the same time, both of y'all. And then it does it, right? We could do something like this so that we can differentiate the borders. So we know the red ones are the table headings and the table datas. And then the outer one is the border on the table itself. Okay. We could also do like this so that we can, one of them will be dashed, one of them will be dotted. But here's the thing. Look what happened. And let me just check the comments real quick. What is that icon for? Which icon? Which icon? Not sure which icon you mean, but let me know and I will answer your question. You put a little icon. You mean the border? Which icon? After table heading. Let me see. Still not sure what you mean. Could you tell me what line you're talking about? Out of these lines on the side, which line would you be referring to? Oh, in the CSS. Oh, you mean this. Okay. That is just a regular old comma. And I can't even copy it and paste it. But it's just a comma. This here is a comma. So, look, anytime you want to tell multiple things to do something, like let's just say, for example, if I did this, HTML, comma, body, comma, divs, comma, I would be telling all of these things at the same time to do something. So border 5 pixels red dotted. I'm telling the HTML, the body, and every div to do this at the same time. So HTML, comma, body, comma, and then div. I'm just telling all of those things to do something at the same time. You see? That's all that is. Yeah, no problem. And again, remember when I told you about I talked about this asterisk that like just selects everything, like any and everything. This is just a more manual way of like you're just selecting a bunch of stuff at the same time, right? So yeah, so we did the table and the table data, but again, going back to what I was talking about, notice that we only did that to one of the tables. The other table, it doesn't have any of that style on it. I'm going to do another thing to this table. I'm going to make the width, 60% of its parent. Actually, I'm going to make it 100% of its parent. And when we make this 100% of its parent, it's going to go the full width of its parent. And its parent div is the main. So it's going to be 100% the width of the dot main div. Okay. But this one did it, this one didn't. Why is that? Because we are specifically targeting anything with the class of TBL. And that's what we have controlling our table here. You have something with a class of TBL. It could be anything with a class of TBL. Like, just for the heck of it, let's just give you an example. Let's say I made a div and I gave it the class of TBL. Well, it's not a table. This isn't a table. This is a div. But it's going to still do the CSS things that it's being told to do. See, you can see the div is there now. Let me highlight it for you, and you'll be able to see it. There's the div with the class of table. See it there? It doesn't have any height to it, but let's just say if we gave .tbl height 200 pixels, it's not only going to affect a table, but it's going to affect both of these things. Like, there's that div with the class of TBL with the black border and the height that I gave it, and there's the table. It's going to affect both of those things because both of those things have the class of table, and we can share classes. That's simply how that works. Anything with the class of this is going to have these things applied to it, no matter what it is. No matter what it is. So it's just a way for us to target things and tell the thing what to do. Okay, now I got rid of that div that I added in there. If I added the class of TBL to the second table, well then the second table is going to have those things applied to it now. Okay, along with the width that was given to it. I mean, sorry, the height, my bad. Along with the height that was given to it. If I get rid of that height, then it's going to go back to its default of just doing what it does. One thing I will do, though, is give this some margin on the bottom. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just so that they're not stacked on each other. We got some space. Okay. Now, okay, so we went over. First, let me check if there's any new chats. Okay, so we went over the concept of this, of adding a class to an element and how we can use these classes to control an element. Now, we could target any instance of a table by just targeting the table tag itself, right? Like, we could have just did it like this and just said table. And then we could have just said table heading and table data, every instance of it, not just only the class, but any instance of table, and it will still work. This will just mean that if we ever add a new table in, which I'm going to do, but I'm not going to put a class on it, then I'll just put a table row and a table data. If we do this, I mean, it's just going to be 1, but it's still going to, see, it's going to affect it. because what I just changed in the CSS is now affecting every instance of a table and every instance of a table heading and a table data. Because it's a now, instead of targeting the class, it's just targeting any element that is a table. Okay, so that's another way that you can do it. And if I was going to do this as a default this way, I would make sure that I put it up here with the others where it belongs. See, HTML body table. See how these ones look the same? Because these are targeting tags, whereas these are targeting classes. Okay, so I put it like that. Now, here is where we get on to the next part of this, and I'm hoping that this isn't getting confusing, because it's going to get a little bit more confusing. But we're gonna try to explain it slowly and clearly, which is this part of the lecture here. So, we have 3 tables here. 3 tables. What would we do if, let's just say for whatever reason, I want the third table to look a little bit different, right? For whatever reason, I'm like, hey, you know what? I want this third table to have a solid border. How would I go about changing that, right? How would we go about changing that? Or maybe any other aspect of it. We just want some things to be different about one of these tables for whatever reason. Well, we could just add a second class, right? Or, so let's say what we're going to do on the second one instead, because I want to show you it with having more than one class. Now, for me to show you this how I really want to show it to you, we would have to put these back to targeting the tables through the class instead of the tag. Because right now, they're targeting the tag and not the class, right? So let's just change these back to targeting the tag .tbl and .tbl table headings and the .tbl table data, which is going to make the third one go back to not looking like the others. But we can easily change that by throwing on the class TBL onto the third table, and voila, it goes right back to looking like the others, because all of these tables have a class of TBL. TBL, table, class TBL, table, class TBL, table, class TBL. Okay. I'm just going to throw a second table data in there just so that it doesn't look like one big table cell. So we have all these with the class of TBL, and that is what is making it look how they look. But let's say we wanted one of them to be a little bit different. Usually for something like this, I put 2 dashes. So TBL dash dash red. That's just my personal preference. Because I know when I do it this way, like you can put whatever you want here. You could put that if you wanted and it would work. Right? The whole point of what I'm doing is I'm telling myself, this is more for the reader, for whoever has to read all this, the human being that has to read this. I'm basically telling the reader that there's something, this TBL, which is the same as this, so I know that this is something specifically for the table that I'm using. And I use the 2 dashes to know that there's something about it that I'm modifying. And then I tell it, and then I say, try to be specific. This is all part of choosing good class names. You want to choose your class names in like a logical way where you know when you read it, okay, this is doing, like I know what this is doing just by looking at the class name that I gave to it. That is something about the table, maybe not red, purple. And then I can do the thing that I want. So I want to modify this, and I don't want it to be black, I want it to be purple. Okay, cool. So tb.tbl dash dash purple. Any one of these tables that I want, instead of being with the black dot dashed border, I can say, I could just throw the class on there, tbl dash dash purple. And it will do that thing. See how it's now purple? Alright? So this is just something that is kind of like, it's just overriding something. And if we look in here, we will see that this table has an override. Where is it? Oh, my bad, wrong thing there. So see here, dot .tbl, border 2 pixels dashed black, and it's strucken out. See how there's a line through it? That line through it is telling us that this has been overridden by something else. Where's that something else? There it is. This is the thing that's overriding it. The purple. Okay. Now, this would also work if we were calling the tables just from the table, right, in the CSS. Like if we changed this back to just table and changed this back to just table heading, table data, and let's say it only had just, well, just no classes, like say all of these just had no classes, it would still work. Right? I know this is, it might sound confusing, but like if we took those out, the classes of TBL altogether, because remember, what I just changed is I changed it to being like a universal, any instance of table heading and table data. But this one, this class will still work. The table purple, right? It'll still work if we do it that way. So either way, it'll work, what we just did. Still overriding something. See, instead of instead of this targeting .tbl now, it's targeting any table, but this override still works. See, it's saying, no, this is being overridden by something else. And there's the override. So it works either way. Okay. Let me check the chat. It's still good. Good. Awesome. So that is the override part and the using multiple classes part. Now again, I know that part that we just went through, especially the concept of using multiple classes and all these different ways that you can connect things and call things and put it all together. It sounds confusing as heck. I know that. But as we keep going and doing this stuff, we're going to consistently just keep using these methods, and eventually it'll just click, right? So the first couple of times we do it is going to sound and look confusing, but the more we do it is the less jarring it will be. You know what I mean? That's just how it goes. So you have to practice. That's just how this works. You have to practice, right? If you don't practice HTML and CSS, then you won't learn it. So anything else? That's about it. But now we'll just break some stuff. Well, not break stuff, but mess around and do other things. One thing is, see, look, if I said on here, display none, remember this is the display property, right? If I say display none, then look what happens. All of my tables go away. And you could do little tricks with this. Actually, no, I'm not going to show you this trick right now. Later on in the year, I'll show you what I was going to show you. But I want to just show you things to allow you to better understand what is going on. So we could say display, and we could change. There's some different things you could do, right? Display list item. See how it has a bullet point beside each table, because it's displaying each table as a list item. Let's say we targeted table, or no, not that. Let's just say we put it on here, display list item. It'll display every table heading and table data as a list item. Right? So you can see we're just changing the behavior of things. And when we change the behavior of the thing, it changes its behavior using the display property. And another quick example of something else that we covered is this. If I say table data hover and table heading hover, and say background color, I'll just put some color. When I mouse over any of these, it's going to change the color of it, because that's the pseudo class, same as this, right? So those are just a few things. One thing I would do, just by how this wrapper, I would put some margin from the top. So this would look like this, 100 pixels auto. And I would push it down a little bit. Maybe that's too much. Maybe like 60 pixels auto. And that would give us something like this. And I just what the hell? Why is that? Why did I put stables in there? Talk about typos. Tables with CSS. There we go. So that is pretty much the gist of that. Okay, good. It doesn't sound confusing. It seems helpful. Awesome. Good, good, good. So that is pretty much that. Hopefully, what we covered today, clears up any. Hopefully, it makes it make more sense. Because again, I know this stuff can be confusing as all hell. So, since I was here, should I check out last week's video? Yeah, like if you haven't checked out last week's video yet, you should go ahead and do that because we covered the same stuff we covered in class. We just practiced it. So if you haven't done that yet, you might want to, right? Those links are up on Blackboard, or you could just go to my channel and just look them up. Because this really explains CSS. Yes, good. That's what I was hoping to continue to do, is make it make more sense. Yeah. All right, so we can wrap this up there. Was last week's any different is what I'm asking. Oh, yes, last week's we covered something different. We covered the same material that was in last week's lecture. So that would be the practice for that. Yeah, either way, you can hand it in without CSS, or you could put a little bit in there if you want. It's up to you. But you don't need to, because I'm not marking you on CSS. I'm only marking you on the HTML. But yeah, check it out. And hopefully last week's will help too. Cool. All right, so we can wrap it up here, and hopefully that makes more sense. Also, if I get an image from Google. Yeah, if you get an image from Google, what about it? Well, you can use an absolute link, like if you just use a random link from some other server, like you can use that link, like the direct link if you want, but it's better to download it, like to actually save the image on your computer and then just do it that way, like the relative link, because the image will be saved in an image folder on your, like within the project, right? Oh, and how do you put a reference to the image? Like if you want to like reference the image, just use commented out code. You could just do something like, here, I'll do it down here so that, and then put like, you know, image, the credit or whatever, and then just put got the something like this. You could just put this under the image tag. You know, something like that. And then when I look at it in the code, then you know, I'll see that you have it cited where you got the image from. And that counts as, yeah. No, put that in the HTML under the image. Just what I'm asking is that if I have to go to Google, then I just copy the link address. Where would I find the reference? Should I? Yeah, just all you gotta do is show me the link to where you got the image. That's it. That's all you need to do. So like wherever you got the image, right? So if I go to and search you know, I get some image of a car. And I get the link. Copy link address. The link of, so this is where I got the image from. Copy the link address, I paste it in my browser. This is where it brings me. So I would just paste that in here. It's a long link, but whatever. That's all you gotta do. Yeah. So yeah, just copy the link to where you got it and paste it in. All right. Any more questions, or you good to go? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yep, you too. All right. So I'll see y'all in the next one. Talk to you later.